underground. I'm playing with a new toy today, and it's a lot of fun. So there was a countdown. That was pretty cool. I dig it. Let's jump in. I got Douglas here with me, Super Chief. I love that you put in Super Chief, man. That's
what you've
fun.
been calling me. So
okay, am I wrong?
It depends on your perspective.
All right, EMT, advanced, right? EMTA.
Yes.
Volunteer fire chief for local department. For how many years?
10.
Okay. Chief of chiefs on top of that, right? For the county.
Yeah.
FEMA.
Technically GEMA, but yeah.
GEMA. Okay. Instructor fire something or other?
Yes.
EMS instructor at all?
Yes.
You've taught at the academy in Forsyth? Yes. Yeah, I'm right. So screw you, man. I'm good. So it is all there. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk about the differences between some fire and EMS. I was teaching on recording lectures on hazmat earlier today and talking about this command system. And even I recorded a lecture last week, 2 weeks ago on incident command and how EMS uses it versus how fire uses it. So I thought it'd be fun. I thought with Super Chief here today about because I've been strictly EMS. I've dabbled in the world of fire, being okay, I'll volunteer, but I'm really just going to drive the truck there and play with the shiny buttons. I'm not going into a house, but because I was stationed at the fire station, like, look, it'd be really helpful if you became an official volunteer. That way, if a fire call came out, you can officially drive the fire truck over there, so on and so forth. So yeah. Oh, I like that it's showing me my likes and my views right now. That's cool. This is StreamYard. This is the free version. If it works out today, which it looks like it will, I'll probably buy the regular version for all my media and use it here as well. Anyway, neither here nor there. But Douglas, you've been in volunteer fire forever. I want to put this in just for funsies. What's up, Nathan? I love that. I can put the comment in right there live and it pops up on screen. So hey, but yeah, you've been a volunteer firefighter for a while. You did that first, right? Before you did any kind of EMS. Well, okay, technically we did EMS by doing first aid, CPR when we were 15 and 16.
Yeah.
But,
I don't count what I did in your shadow as anything that I did.
Oh, so you have never done anything in your life? Because I believe I got married first. I introduced you to your wife. I had kids first. I left the church
talking
first.
About when we intubated a pickup truck.
Oh, no, that's a beautiful story. Okay. So I used to drive this Ford 78 Ford F-150, right? It was a great truck. It was just a get around truck. And I wish we still had it. I wish I'd known what I know now about who was going to help me out with money and this and that, because the transmission went out on it. And those things are fairly expensive. But something was going wrong. I forget what. Do you remember what was going wrong with the truck, Douglas?
You ran it out of gas.
Did I?
Yeah.
Did I?
That's okay. Why we had to repressurize the fuel system.
Okay. I don't remember what we were doing. So I ran it out of gas and I filled it up with gas, and of course it won't turn over. And you were like, man, I need some kind of pump, some kind of something to pressurize the system. And we don't have it. I'm like, wait just a minute, sir. And we're at the fire station, right? I think it's in Jasper County, probably.
Yeah.
And we're at the fire station. So I go in there and I pick up a bag valve mask, and I started looking at my intubation tubes. I'm like, 6.5 looks about right. And I brought it to you, and you cut off part of it because we didn't need the whole thing, right?
Right.
And then you stuck it into the fuel lines.
Yes.
And you just pressurized the fuel lines with a bag valve mask, right?
Right.
So that's EMS in a nutshell. We think outside the box. The firefighter's like, well, I don't have a compression hose, and I don't have a Farfanuger coupler to hook it up, and and like, here's some tools, duct tape it, and you did. But what else happened that day?
Was that when you almost set me on fire for the third time?
No, I almost blew you up though. See, I also happen to have some M80s for whatever reason in my backpack at the station. And here he is, and he's got a little cup of fuel, right?
You
gasoline.
would be surprised how many fireworks are at volunteer fire stations, just in general.
I get that. because we get bored, right? And it is a little surprising. Now, if it's not a station that somebody's at all the time, I'm really surprised. But yeah, so I had some fireworks for whatever reason, and you had this open little Dixie cup of gasoline next to you because you kept putting it in, pressurizing, whatever. And I threw it a good half a foot to foot away from you. I mean, it's plenty of distance, not to kill you, but his head's in the engine compartment. And I set off the firecracker, and he turned as white could be. I mean, he jumped. He was. I think I actually pissed you off just a little bit with that one, maybe.
Yeah,
in the moment. So, but yeah, I can fix it. If you got burned, I can fix it.
Yes, you at that time you could have. That was before I got involved in any of the official emergency services. I think
So-
I was still in college at that time, so I wasn't officially doing
I
anything.
don't remember. It's been a while. It's definitely when I lived on the lake.
Yeah.
So, what drew you to fire over EMS?
Well, my dad was a volunteer firefighter, so I kind of had it in my mind that I wanted to do something. If once I had settled down and I knew I wasn't going to be moving anymore, I kind of wanted to do something, to kind of help out the county. I got into the fire because at the time I was like, well, EMS takes all this school and stuff, and then you got to get a job, and I've got a job. I don't need another job, young and dumb, but So
if you're really dumb, you would have just dropped everything on an EMS. That's yeah. I'm pretty sure when you got started with all that, you were working for the government,
yes.
like you are now.
Matter of fact, I was in the early stages of my federal career, and I was trying to take Nicole fishing, and so we were going into Elberton, and we stopped by bait shop and ran into one of the guys that was in the fire department that was like, "Oh, you've got a federal job. We need some help with some federal grants." And
because those go hand in hand, right? I'm a janitor at a federal building, but sure, I'll help you with that grant.
Well, considering I could read and write, it was a step up from what they had.
I'm not going to dog out volunteer firefighters, but I'm going to say he said it. Super chief over here. So you got involved in that, then ultimately you crossed over to EMS, and you are an advanced EMT now, and you do some ride. You ride like once or twice a month at least.
I try to do at least once a month. They've had some shift coverage issues lately. A lot of people are part-time, so they've got their core group of full-time people, but the vast majority, I'd say we've got, I don't know, 6 full-time people and probably 15 or 20 part-time people. And so because of COVID, a lot of the part-time people aren't doing as much part-time stuff because their full-time places are giving them grief about, well, if you catch this at your part-time job, then it's your part-time job's problem. And they go, well, I'm not covered with my part-time job.
Yeah. That's something to dive into here. That's something to talk about a little bit. That's kind of fair though, right? It's you work a full-time job with other employees and other people who are there, and that job may or may not be going through the things they need to go through, like temperature checking and making sure that everything's good. But everybody has to follow by regulations and by practices. So it's sucky, but would you say that's kind of fair to go, we don't really want you going out and handling potentially COVID patients and then coming work here?
I can understand from an employer perspective that they want to focus on what they employ you to do. I don't know why there isn't some better understanding in the EMS profession specifically, because these employers know, just statistically, the vast majority of people that have full-time jobs in one place have one or more part-time jobs somewhere else. And I'm not saying they work 40 hours here and 20 hours there or whatever. That's EMS just doesn't work like that. But
Sure, right.
say you've got your full-time job with, company A or county A, and you work 1 or 2 shifts a month with company B. That's a part-time thing.
Yes.
Well, company A doesn't want to pay for anything that you do while you're working for company B, but company B
Sure.
goes, well, you're only here once a month. We're not going to give you any kind of insurance or whatever. Obviously, there's, if you have a work related injury that's specific to company B, there's stuff for that. But if you're coming back and saying, well, you got sick, well, was it sick here? Was it sick there? Was this, you can't prove that you got COVID from company A or company B, unless company B, you're French kissing some COVID patient or some
What?
stupid thing. I mean,
What kind of fire department do you work for, man?
hey, we've been talking about
Dude.
volunteers.
So, okay. So, but with business and even in the state of Georgia, it's a right to hire, right to fire state. So it doesn't really matter if they can prove it. If they go, you work with the volunteer fire department or you pick up part-time shifts on an ambulance, and we know the likelihood of you being exposed to COVID is much higher statistically. I'm making all this up, right? But
Yes.
because theoretically you're going to get that 911 call, that's a fever, that is this and that, and then you're exposed to whatever that fever is, being it COVID or not, they can go, it doesn't matter what we can prove. You had an unsafe job as a side job. I guess it depends on their policies and their procedures. I know when I worked for National EMS, there was forms that said if I wanted to go get a second job, I was supposed to get approval from them first.
Yeah.
They didn't want me competing with them and the non-emergency section and working for another non-emergency company. Typically, if you work 911, as long as you were there when you're full-time at National, that was your number one job. So even if you worked full-time somewhere else, it was supposed to be National first and then somebody else. It didn't really work that way. They actually were flexible and worked with people who are like, no, I work for Henry County Fire or DeKalb Fire, or whatever. And that's my primary, but I still want to work my off days full-time with you and I can work my shift. And they worked with that, but it was supposed to be typically we hire you. This is your primary job. And they reserved the right to say, well, we can't tell you not to get that other job, but if you do, we're going to fire you. And that's okay. Cause they had a policy for that. And that's the weird area that we get into, especially now with the COVID stuff and everything else. I mean, you could easily say, well, I don't want you going running fires at 4 a.m. because you got to be here at 8 a.m. and you're going to show up smelling like smoke and you hurt your ankle and you're tired as all get out because you've had 3 hours of sleep. And I need you to process these TP 14 reports or whatever for the weekend.
Yes.
TPS report.
I do, with my federal job, I have to do a, what's it called? A disclosure notice. There's a fancy lawyer name for it, but I have in my personnel file with the federal government, documents that says I am a volunteer firefighter. I'm an advanced EMT. I'm a CPR instructor. I'm a fire instructor. Anything that I do, because the federal government says whether it's paid or not, if you have, it doesn't say license, but there's language in there where basically our lawyer said, because you're doing something that has a specific technical skill. I mean, you're not just going out and volunteering volunteering to pick up trash or
Right.
volunteering for a charitable organization that you may volunteer with once or twice a year. Because you are doing something that is a technically qualified skill, I've got to do disclosures with my federal job. So far, they haven't said anything about what I've been doing in the last 6 months, but I don't poke the bear.
Yeah,
unless it's you.
So let's talk about some how we approach some scenes. So we talked last time you were on, we talked about volunteering in the world of COVID and how there's a lot of people who are either being mandated, you're not mandated, but the counties are going, no, we're not responding to those calls at all right now. But you get called just in general in the fire service. Where does volunteering draw the line? Because I know most paid services will respond to every call in their zone. And there's some they definitely like, hey man, get there and cancel us. Okay. We really don't want to run. We don't need to be, and it's a call that maybe they don't need to be there, but they are mandated by their county in a paid service working side by side with EMS, or like in DeKalb County, they own the EMS certificate and they hire a company to do it. The fire trucks run, but where does volunteering? I mean, it's volunteer. Basically, you can choose to run or not run any call you want, right?
Right. So you can't force any of our first responders to go anywhere. What our county has done is just simply stopped paging them for anything that's related to fever, nausea, diarrhea,
Stub toe, my stomach hurts, those kind of things. Yeah.
the difficulty breathing stuff. They are.
Hey, you don't go to difficulty breathing? You're
No.
a evil human being.
They don't send first responders to difficulty breathing because it could be COVID related. They send.
Now, okay, pre-COVID. Before that, though, y'all went to difficulty breathing was a standard dispatch first responder call, right?
Yes, before COVID, first responders were paged for every single thing EMS did except nursing home and jail.
Okay, so that was just that's where they drew the line, was there, nursing home and jail. But turned out, I know when I was in Morgan County, there were calls that they'd be toned out for and calls they wouldn't be toned out for, but it was a lot more than just nursing home and jail that they would not be toned out for at all there. So, okay. All right. So of course EMS goes on just about everything. The only thing we would not get toned out for, well, no, that's not true. Sometimes somebody would goof up and tone us out, but technically if it was a brush fire, EMS was not supposed to be toned. Only fire was supposed to be toned out for that.
What they're supposed to do, and like you said, that they sent an ambulance at 3:00 in the morning to a fire alarm and had a really, really upset medic. What they're supposed to do is only page an ambulance when there is a confirmed structure fire and you're going to have firefighters inside, or you have the potential of patients on the scene. If it is a storage building, if it's a vehicle, if it's brush fire, if you're not going to be in a red zone, hot zone, if you're not packing out to go inside something, and I know you stop screaming, you pack out for cars, I get it, but I don't. There are other people in this world.
Yeah, they're not important. But no, I definitely get what you're saying. I hear what you're saying there. And yeah, you're right. There were some other things I didn't get toned out for. The only time that I can recall actually getting in trouble with my fire chief. So that's when I was in Rockdale County. I worked with National EMS. And so we were private, but we were stationed at the headquarters for Rockdale County Fire. And so we had to really had to toe the lines of no sleeping there. All the firehouse rules, but I'm not a firefighter. It didn't matter. It's one of those national fully believed you're part of the team. So if you're in the fire station, you follow their rules, period. And the fire chiefs were really good to me, especially if I worked a 48-hour shift. They knew that I was always there to toe the line. I'm always there here. How can I help clean the station? Is there anything I can help you do? If you're doing in-house con ed stuff, I'll participate. I'll help teach you some stuff, whatever. I was always there to help out and be a part of the team. And they really looked after me too. If I worked a 48-hour shift and I was really dragging, look, man, why don't you go? The chief would say, why don't you go into my room and shut the door and take a nap? Go do that. Even though we're not supposed to, it's my room. Nobody's going to ask questions. There was times like that they helped me out. So the one time I can recall getting in trouble with the fire chief was they got toned out. I mean, it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock. I'd already been out on 2 or 3 other calls since dinner, maybe 4 or 5 other calls since dinner. And I hadn't really been sleeping. And they get toned out, and man, the chief's car takes off right ahead of everybody else, and I'm dragging my butt to the ambulance, and the fire truck takes off, and the chief's car gets there. Whoever gets there first calls it in, says, "Look, all we have is smoke showing, no fire." Because it's confirmed structure fire, blah blah. No, we just have some smoke. We're gonna check it out, and then it's there's no confirmed. It's not a structure fire. There's just smoke. And I went, "Therefore, 601 today to the station." Click, and went back to bed. And the chief, and they were out there for another hour or so, and our shift changes at 6:30, and theirs at 7. They come rolling in about 6:30, and you could hear noise as you would anyway. And I'm starting to get up, and chief let me sleep, And I slept from like 4 to 6:30. So I got like 2 hours sleep. And then he's like, what the hell's wrong with you, boy? You know, I didn't cancel you. You do not cancel yourself off scene. I'm like this. One eye open. I'm sorry, Chief. I won't do it again, Chief. I appreciate you, man. Can I go home now? Thanks. Yeah, I was like, he's like, yeah, okay, you're good. But yeah, it was like a 30-second butt chewing, right? But it was because I cleared myself from the scene without ever going there, without asking his permission. And he's like, nah, that's not cool. I had people on scene. Things could have gone wrong. But he also gave me a lot of slack because, again, I was there to help out.
So let me tell you the last time I was on a fire scene and released the med unit.
Okay.
We go out to a fire. The guy had gone to work, night shift, nobody home, nobody in the residence. It is a complete burnt to the ground, gone.
Done.
So
all right.
the ambulance is out there. We're doing mop up. And I'm like, look, guys, we're not in the structure. We're not fighting anything. It's burned itself out. Go back, get some sleep, whatever. Not 5 minutes later, I was back on the radio. Hey, can you come back out here?
No!
This guy just fell out. We were having a conversation and he just fell straight backwards like a light switch. I don't know. Come back.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Now that we're on these stories, my worst scene, monkey humping a football comes to mind. And honestly, okay. I want to clarify this story with I'm never here to dog out firefighters or volunteers. You volunteer your time. I give you a little extra appreciation for that. But I hold a standard, as all fire chiefs should. So I hope Douglas holds this standard of you got to put the work in. You got to get the training in. You got to take it serious. It's not fun and games. And you need to follow the rules. The rules are there for a reason. And this is a story I tell anybody who listens when they ask about fire versus EMS and volunteer fire versus professional department. And really, it's not about paid versus unpaid. It's about standards. And professional department, they usually have higher standards than some volunteers. And after I tell the story, Douglas, I want to hear what your standards are for your volunteers, because you're the chief of the chiefs. So I'm sure you set standards over everybody, but you can definitely control your station. So we get toned out for this house, a beautiful house. I knew what this house was. I passed by it every day when I came to work. It was a quarter mile from the station, maybe a half mile from the station. It was literally around the corner from the volunteer station that was right there. And it's a structure fire. Okay. And now this home had been added onto, it had 4 fireplaces in each corner. Some of it was stone, some of it was wood. It started a smaller house and made his beautiful 2-story house, beautiful grounds, this and that and the other. And firefighters get in. Here's what I witnessed rolling up, right? Volunteers there, and we're on it. We're here to confirm structure fire. Flames are showing. Back room only. The back room, Douglas, has at least 2 walls. The exterior walls are stone walls. There's a window. There's a pool. All right. Okay. The front of the house, nothing's touching it yet, right? It's made of wood. So the first thing I literally witnessed a firefighter do is I'm pulling into the driveway with the ambulance with other fire trucks coming in. Is a firefighter in a t-shirt and turnout pants and tennis shoes, run up to the front door, kick it in. Remember, try before you pry? That's not a thing for him. Kicks it in, then turns around and runs away. Didn't go in to check on people. Just kicks in the door and runs away. At the same time, firefighter Fred, unbeknownst to me, is punching out the window in the room that has fire because maybe we'll throw a hose through the window because there's a pool here. What did it just do, Super Chief?
It's called a fire path.
It opened up the freaking oxygen. Yes. Oh my God. So, I mean, that's how this goes. This house builds and builds. They never do anything with the pool, which why would you? The stone is to the pool. You go into the front of the house with a hose and push the fire up against the wall and put it out, right? Save the structure. There was so much that went wrong with this thing. And we set up rehab. We had the other truck go to the local grocery store and grab us, a couple of gallons, as many gallons as they would donate of Gatorade and water and bottle. And we already had bottled waters and stuff. So we set up a little tent. And these firefighters, man, they're rushing. They're hyped up and they're putting on their full turnout gear. And I asked the dude eventually, because he's putting on his pants, I'm like, Why the hell did you go kicking the door? Well, just in case anybody's in there. Is there? I don't know. Yeah, because you kicked in the door, you ran away. What the hell's wrong with you? And so then we see people, I mean, they suit up and they go in and they're fighting the fire. There's what little I know about incident command for fire is there's supposed to be like a key tag in thing, right? Where we know Bubba's in the house and Bubba Jr.'s in the house and the Cole Jr.'s in the house and whatever names we can come up with, and these aren't. And when they come out, the tag comes off. None of that. We don't know who's in the house, who's not. And about the time Oconee County comes in as backup, right? They called in other volunteer station, but called in Oconee County because right on the line. And they come rolling out, and it's like, our firefighters are coming out after being in for 3 minutes, dude. 3 minutes fighting this fire, ripping off their masks, hot as can be, just puking their brains out because I'm sure they're hyperventilating inside their mask. And these guys come out, they lay some lines that are nice and pretty and straight. And the chief kind of looks at the door, looks at the firefighters, went, well, I guess it's a full involved structure fire now. And they start attacking the outside. And that was the biggest difference in standards that I see from even what I hold on EMS, which there's all variants of EMS and what you can get away with, what you can't. I never look at what I can get away with. I look at what I want to do and how I'm proud of myself and what's right and what's safe. But that standard of almost zero training, it felt like, for these volunteers and this professional crew coming in going night and day, right? That's so, and that all that's left standing of that house was the fireplaces. That was it. And it literally was fire in one room when we got there. What are your standards? Do you hold standards for training? How would you have run that scene being the on-scene fire chief?
If I was there and I had adequate resources, what we would do is set up a primary engine to make an entrance through the front door. You would have 2 guys in the back for ventilation, but if you already see smoke and flames out the back, you're not going to open up any other holes. You take your 4 guys in the front and you make entrance through the front to try to push the fire away from the unburned area. Now, that's if I was there, if we had enough resources. The problem with your volunteers is that I'm not the first one that gets there. We don't have an engine that gets there. You've got Larry that shows up with his brush truck and
or his Mazda XRX.
the critical minutes of a volunteer response are getting the people that know what to do in place. So I try to emphasize in my classes, everybody needs to know what to do. The difference being with the Firefighter 1 curriculum that I have taken and looking at what they expect. And when I say that, I mean IFSTA. It's the standard that we've been using. The way IFSTA puts out the curriculum is that Firefighter 1, you take orders. They very, very generally go over scene size up, very generally go over the analysis stuff. Now, I haven't gotten in depth in the 7th edition yet, but from the 5th and 6th, they really expect the initial firefighters to take orders. That doesn't work with volunteers. The initial firefighters have to be able to make those decisions and then follow through with it. So what you get is the guy who hasn't been to a meeting in 6 months because meetings are boring, but oh my God, this is a fire. Oh man.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of stuff.
Give me flashbacks.
You have a lot of uncontrolled actions at the beginning. And sometimes, like you said, by the time someone gets there, it's irrevocable. You can't overcome what's been done. I talked with a guy from Metro Atlanta, and I mean, this was like downtown Metro Atlanta. And he said that their response was 5 to 7 minutes. I'm like, wow, we don't even get a page in 7 minutes.
No, that's maybe true, but yeah. Yeah, that's I have sat in the 911 center, pulling some extra time, whatever I was doing. I was volunteering. I don't remember, but I was sitting there and we had a guy who was basically the main dispatcher, and I was working with him that day, and he was showing me, because I was handling the non-emergency side, like here's the brush fire stuff, here's how you issue not brush fire, but here's how when somebody calls, say I want to burn stuff in my yard, here's the information get, here's how you issue a number, backup line in case the 911 rang a second time while he's on the line, that kind of thing. But I'd watch him get a 911 call for a motor vehicle accident, and it was like molasses. All right, what's your location? I'm like, do you want me to go ahead and tone the truck? No, man, I gotta go. What? Okay, you're at this road and this road. Okay, I know where that is. You want me to tone? No, man. And it's like he get all the information, and then and I'm like in my head going 1,000, 2,000. Dude, we're a minute in. We're a minute and a half in. You ain't toned nobody. What's wrong with you, man? And finally, like 3 minutes in, which that's the first they've heard of this. I'm like, dude, I'm sitting right here. I could have dropped those tones and go stand by for a call. You've got, and while I'm doing that, he's got the location. You got a possible MVC at this crossroads right here. You know, go for it. And he 3.5 minutes in, he finally drops the tones like, all right, 1201. Y'all got a MVC over at these crossroads. And then of course they're getting up, putting on their apps, and he's just like, holy crap, is this what every call is like? We're already 3 minutes in before you tone us? What the hell, man? So yeah, I know some people and some dispatches can be like. Of course, then you got the other one. Have you ever had the Ebonics dispatcher?
Yes.
Yeah. I can't stand that. It's because even I talk fast. So if I'm on the radio, I need to be like, okay, and I'm just going to use numbers that I've had before, right? Okay, 1201. You've got a motor vehicle accident at the crossroads of Smith Street and Bang Street.
Be a 1201.
I was 1201, 1202, mostly 1202.
That was my first Chiefs number. Vesta was station 12.
Ah, well, in Morgan County, I think the county number was 12 or something. Roy Perry said B's that way. But we got a dispatcher. Well, of course, the guy I was talking about, the slow guy, he would literally dispatch. You remember 5 years ago when lightning struck that tree down and it burned down? That's where you're going to turn. No, I got hired on 6 months ago, dude. I have no idea what you're talking about. Give me cross streets. Give me addresses. But they hired somebody who just, you've got to be able to communicate. And yes, even I crossed over, with my words. I mumble. I've learned to be clearer and better about how I speak. But we had this girl came on. We need y'all go down to Hamilton accident, and I'm like, what did you say? Wait, I need you to. I hear MVC. You're going to have to speak slower and clearer because I literally cannot understand a word that you're saying. But yeah, Roy's like, that's me. I know where that is. Yeah, because Roy, you've lived in that county your entire life. This dude, Roy Perry, has been involved in Morgan County emergency since he was 14 or 16 years old. He's something like 205 now or something. I don't know. He's been with every professional agency that's come through that county. He was with fire. Yes, you know where the lightning struck the tree and burned the tree down. Even to this day, I don't know where that stupid tree is at all, But okay, so that's the difference, right? That we're talking about dispatching and this and that and other. What about like hazmat? Or let's go with incident command. That's a good universal one. Incident command. So I know when I taught it, incident command in EMS books is incident commander, medical officer, transport officer, one other. And that's the whole breakdown. Like, no, there's so much more to this breakdown of incident command is you guys at command. Then you can have finance officer, you can have communications officer, you can have liaison, like press liaison underneath there, depending on the size of the scene, right? So when you're talking about firefighter one, expecting them to take orders, whereas in volunteer, you're right, you have to go and set up, here's the information you need, here's the command, here's what I need to happen. Then as structure comes into place, hand it on up. That I know you're coming from a volunteer organization, but do you practice incident command on every fire scene, every scene you go on?
No. Our incident command stops at the incident commander. We preach incident command. We try to facilitate incident command, but you get a lot of times people say, I'm in command. And what that means is they want to tell people what to do. There's never a command structure. There's never a command staff. They never get farther than I'm in charge. That's my experience with volunteer fire and incident command. And, to an extent,
you could change that.
Yeah, we're trying to get to a point where we practice doing incidences instead of, we have no training facility in our county. So when you get to a fire scene, that's the first time that people have seen 4 or 5 trucks come together. That's the first time people have seen,
I've seen your property. I'm pretty sure you could light some crap on fire and train some firefighters on your property.
Officially, we have no training facility. What may or may not have transpired in the.
But what you're saying, yeah, live fires is where that is a hard place to be, to only be able to train on live fires, because how often does that even happen in your county?
Twice.
Like ever? I mean, twice a month? I don't. You gotta qualify that a little bit better.
We've had 2 working structure fires in 2020.
Okay, so wow, 8 months in, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You might get toned out for more stuff, but how often is a scene safe enough to teach on and big enough to learn something on?
And to an extent, I mean, we have issues with incident command on something like an MVC, MVC. We're not supposed to call them accidents anymore. They're collisions, because accidents imply that it was unavoidable. Anyway, if you get an ambulance crew that shows up, if they're the first ones there, before the fire departments, before the cops, ambulance gets there first, that ambulance crew, according to National Incident Management System, that paramedic is the incident commander. And I have never seen that happen.
Because you don't ride with me and I like to control everything. No, I don't. You don't see that very often either. I haven't seen that very often either in my career. I'm not saying that
they're derelict in their duty. I'm saying the guy gets out of the truck and he's focused on the patient. He could care less about traffic control or about leaking fluids. Hey, I've got a patient to deal with.
Part of that, so I'll so that's fire versus EMS, and I'm on the EMS side, right? So part of that is I've gotten to a scene and there's already a volunteer firefighter out there waving people through and this and that, and I can see how they park their vehicle or the fire truck or whatever, or I parked my ambulance where it blocks off some space. I've made myself a work zone, and I know they're going to bring them around over here because that's how this works, and they're going to handle that. So I don't necessarily take scene command. I'm going to go, okay, in my scene survey, homeboy is handling traffic. I know the cops will be here soon enough. They're right behind us. I got to survey my patients. I've got to survey the scene for safety and see what's going on, mechanism of injury, those kind of things. So yes, you're right. I would have to say most of my experiences with volunteer fire have been, I've got a patient to worry about. Just don't get me killed. However, the one time I really implemented incident command, it was in Jasper County, and that's why I said you personally, Super Chief, can change something, because Ed Westbrook was a fire like you. He was the fire chief of a station in Jasper County. He was also the man that the government employed to run all the volunteer fire services. So he was super chief over that. He was over dispatch. He was over EMS. He was GMA. So he held the power. But he held that standard of, this is how we run incidences. And every fire scene I ever worked with him, it was like that. We set up a fit, because like I said, I did many, many years next to Rockdale County Fire, being that was EMS, and watching how that system ran, and they ran incident command every time. Engine one's on scene, setting up command, and that's how they ran every structure fire everywhere. But that's a city where they probably ran almost as many calls as EMS did, right? So they ran a lot of calls. It's a high call volume county. In fact, to the point they've added more stations since my time there. But Jasper County being volunteer, I'd watch that. I'd come in, and if it was a structure fire and I'm there to support EMS or support fire by being EMS, I would go ahead and set up command and take over, because I knew, like you said, there are some go-getters out there you wouldn't see ever for 6 months. All of a sudden, they're coming home from the beach, and they show up in their flip-flops and shorts because they're passing right by the fire. And I just want to take a hose in. No, moron, you need turnout gear for that. I know that, and I'm commander. I have paramedic on my patch. Screw you, man. You can't outrank me. But he would show up and he would do a legit turnover of command. And I always appreciated about him and how he ran his fire service. Like you, he did a lot of internal classes, firefighter 1, 2 classes, those kind of things. He actually tried to do an EMT class at one point, I think. But yeah, I set up incident command on a two-car vehicle, at a collision, two-vehicle collision, because one was on fire, 3 patients were out of the car, one was unconscious, unresponsive, and I had a dude impaled in a car up on a hill. I'm like, yeah, no, this is a mass casualty for me. And we set up command and we did their stuff, and it flowed that way. And actually, April Franklin's here. Ronnie Franklin was on that call with me. How is Ronnie doing, April? I know the last time, 2 weeks ago, you popped in and said he was not doing very well. He had COVID. He was on a ventilator. I have not heard anything since. I kind of hate to put you on the spot and ask publicly, but I am interested in how Ronnie might be doing. But that's what teaching EMS incident command was really weird, because it really focuses on, okay, the mindset of who writes the books is, okay, you're going to show up and there's going to be an incident commander. And when that incident commander is there, and of course I guess, oh, well, you might be the commander, and then blah, 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 you got to do this, blah, blah, you got to do that. But then you turn over command, and that's 3 lines. And then it's maybe a paragraph on, okay, you really got to know triage, because the triage officer does this, 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 and this. And then, or you got to know transport, because this is what the transport officer is doing. And, and it really goes into just the medicine of incident command, which I think is a really weak and bad way to teach EMTs entering the field. This is what incident command is, unless, of course, you go to a fire service and then you'll learn more. Do you go beyond when you teach firefighter 1? Because you're teaching volunteers. Do you teach more than what they're doing?
Yes. We go to the point of saying, look, here's the curriculum. Here's what the book, layout is. This is your national incident structure. They do the 100, 200, 700, 800 as really a prerequisite to the fire course. But we always take the time to sit down and go through, okay, look, this curriculum is based on having an engine company, a truck company, a tanker crew, a med crew, and having defined responsibilities. It looks at, sergeants and captains and battalion chiefs. This is how you're going to see this happen in Oglethorpe. This is the way things respond. And usually what we'll do is we'll take the last fire. And so I try to get somebody that was there, and we walk through. So look, this is what happened. Not trying to argue good, bad, or otherwise. This is what happened, because I will never go back and armchair quarterback somebody for the decisions they made on the scene to critique them. If they want to know, hey, how can we make this stuff better? All right, well, here's the things that you could think about. But if somebody goes, well, why did so-and-so do that? Well, because he was in charge, and that's the decision he made at the time.
But if it's a bad decision, you'll address that in private, right?
Yes. If you have something that's...
Otherwise, I'm never driving to Oglethorpe County again.
I'm not talking about, gross incompetence or negligence or anything that's dangerous, but say, why did he nurse the tanker instead of setting up a drop tank? Or, why did he, run a shuttle to the hydrant instead of laying, 2,000 feet of hose? Because that's what he wanted to do, or she. So yeah, we in Oglethorpe try to take a specific incident that occurred that some people may remember and go, this is how this worked on this scene, and we kind of critique it. We go, well, this, we didn't have the chief that showed up first. We didn't have all the trucks that we could have had. Or this is what we saw when we got there, and this is how we reacted to it. So if you see this again, remember, these are the resources that are available to you. This is relating to, talking about the hose streams or ventilation or fire paths. This is what happened on this incident. This is why we're talking about this stuff in this book.
All right. I like it. That's basically called tabletopping, except you're doing it with students instead of with the people involved, right? So if you have an incident, and it's any incident, whether it goes right or wrong, I've always felt like, and I've gotten very little response on this, hey, let's let's the next day that we're on shift, or if it's a volunteer, let's set a special meeting and do this. But let's do it fairly close to the incident, and let's break it down with no accusations. No, why'd you do this or that? Let's say, okay, what went right and what went wrong, and what can we learn from it? So that we're breaking it down in what would be known as a safe environment, right? As a place of because if it is incompetence, if there is something wrong that they did, then yeah, you need to sit down with them in private and address that for sure. But if it's just, well, you could have run a shuttle line and that would have been better, or you could have run 2,000 feet of hose, whatever, if it could have, this might have been better. Yeah, in the moment, this is what I thought of, blah, blah, blah. I can see now this would be better. So next time, there you go. See your traditional knock the phone over moment. There we go. It's a thing now. It's ghosts. It's ghosts. But yeah, I'm that guy. I just never think we have enough communication in this world, and definitely not in our respective fields. And I mean, even if you run an EMS call, you really just go and sit and tell stories about it, right? You don't really run how could have gone better, what's different about it, this and that, the other. Um, that's something that should be changed. And here's my thing. In order to change that, you have to get people to care. And in order to care, that means you got to kick out the people who don't care. But we're already at a shortage of EMS personnel and volunteers. I know, but that's why it's called standards. We need standards in our field. And that's tough, right? Because with paramedics, especially, if they don't like it, they can always go somewhere else, right? And volunteers, how do you motivate people to care and still show up? It's like, oh, I got to take all these classes and I got to dedicate this much time out of my life during the week. I'll tell you, that's the second reason why I don't volunteer. First reason is I do not want to be running into buildings and putting out fires. But I respect the ranking system and I respect putting in your time. I get that if I'm a brand new firefighter and I have firefighter 1, this is my job. I just don't want to do that job. So if you allow me to do the helpful stuff, I'll do that. But I understand that I can't be a volunteer for that. But the second reason is 3 a.m. I really don't care. I need my sleep. I got stuff to do tomorrow. I got to get up and save lives. I gotta, I just, you got a lift assist at 4 a.m. Sorry, I'm not interested. I don't want to do that. Roy Perry says we do have standards. Can the rest keep up with them? And that's the thing, right? Can they keep up? And does it matter? I mean, when you come down to, Roy and I most recently worked together at Trinity EMS. And when it comes down to a small call volume and an up and coming company and trying to do things, it's hard enough to go, how do we get somebody to come work here when there's 4 calls today? Maybe there's going to be 6, and more than likely you'll get off on time, but it's not exciting. It's not great that way, right? And then, we don't have people to run the calls that we do have. That's, I try to hold standards. I'm wrapping up the AEMT class for Georgia Institute of EMS, and it's a digital class. So it's not like I'm finishing a class that's going. I'm recording all the lectures. And as I built out all of the tests, more and more into it, at some point about chapter 20, I started saying, all right, you are now responsible for everything that you learned in EMT school. End of story. Because I believe in personal responsibility. And you're going through advanced school. This isn't the time to go, oh, you can't test me on basic airway because you didn't tell me about, you're an EMT fool. You at least finished the class. I'm holding you to that standard, period, in the story. And then you're responsible to remember every chapter that you've learned up to this point. I finished up chapter 48 today, and most of that test is just National Registry. It's a 135 question test. 45 questions at best were off the chapter that I recorded today. And really they're mixed. It's not even 45 questions. It's probably about 30 questions were off the chapter that I recorded today. The rest were off of recent chapters. And then the rest of that 135 question test is National Registry, because you've got to hold that. You've got to be willing to show up. Man, Roy, I remember I remember one of the days that all of us got into an argument, and Huey was even involved. And we're like, well, Kelly's doing this, and Charles is doing that, and Chuck's doing this, and Roy's doing that. And Roy stood up and basically said, standards have slacked because this is what the standard used to be. And I came in, I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And then it showed that nobody cared that I did it. I mean, it was, I can't remember the exact phrasing. He didn't do it in a way that people were like, well, screw you, man. He did it in a way that people went, oh, yeah, you kind of have a point that there was a standard. And even Huey had to say, who was our immediate supervisor, yeah, we kind of haven't been holding that standard, you know. And then once somebody starts letting go of their standards, where does it stop? Where does it matter? And that's the hardest thing is, you know, I'm the digital media director for DragonCon, right? That track. And so I'm holding a standard for all of my panels, which matters more than ever this year because it's just a digital convention now. But it's like, no, if you're not going to step up and do this, or here's a point for you, Super Chief, is I take feedback. I'm always listening to feedback. I'm always listening to how we do things and how we can improve things. I no longer think I'm the end all be all of the world. I do think the world still revolves around me. I just realized I can learn stuff to make it revolve a little bit better. That's all. And I had this guy complain about how the tables were diamonds. So essentially you're kind of at 45-degree angles to the person you're talking to, which means you're at kind of 45-degree angles to the audience. But you know, your head can turn. It's pretty easy. And he's like, well, I didn't like the tables because we couldn't see the audience. And dude, I legit, as a director in a recording that I put out to everybody, went, you're stupid. If you can't turn your head, man, that's on you. Are you seriously complaining that you had to turn a little bit? No, that's called audience engagement 101, man. And don't come back to my track, you know, but so you got to set standards and hold them. And yeah, Roy is mentioning Pat Atkins, and April saying Pat was great. Pat was great. I didn't agree. Here's the thing. I didn't agree with all the standards. So I fought some of them. Right. But as I've gotten older and gotten better into my career, I still don't necessarily agree with polyester pants and patent leather polished shoes, because those patent leathers especially were slicker than baby snot in the rain on I-20. You know, it was just, those were not good. Boots are good, but holding a standard of grooming that needs to progress with society. Like today, I don't know what the standards are for national now, but when I got hired, I could not work there today. I've got a faux hawk, I've got an earring, I've got this goatee, and they were like, no, that's not a thing here. It might be different now, but even you, Douglas, you couldn't wear your beard when I worked at National, you know? So standards have to progress, right? Standards have to change, but standards need to be there. They don't change. They don't like get dropped. They can just grow and change as we grow and change as a progressive society and whatnot. But that's neither here between fire. Well, you know what? I'll leave this because we got a few minutes left, Douglas. With all that being said, progression and change, I feel like EMS is way more progressive and easy to change than firefighting.
Yes, because I'll give you my perspective on it. EMS, generally speaking, I know there's exceptions. I know you can argue either way, but generally, EMS is a paid career. It has a job title. It's got, you know, this is how I'm earning my living. This is my duty to act. It's for the most part more regulated than fire. So it's easier to go, hey, look, this is how things are progressing. You want to keep your job, then you got to do these things. In fire in Georgia, from my perspective, volunteers don't like anybody telling them what to do.
Yeah.
The training council started in 16 and said, hey, here's, I forget what it was, 20, 30 pages worth of rules that you've got to do. And 2 years into it, they were coming across departments that were like, screw you, you can't tell me what to do. And they said, oh, no, yes, we can. And so now the state legislature, before this COVID stuff came in, the state legislature was looking at doing away with those rules because there was so much pushback on, you can't tell me what to do. I'm the volunteer.
Mm.
I
know where I stand on that.
I can appreciate both halves of it because I I know what it's like to try to provide professional service, because like everybody I know has a story of, well, I think volunteers are stupid because I watched them at a fire one time.
Yeah, if that was my only experience, I would have believed that volunteers are stupid. It's not my own experience.
Yeah. So I don't believe that volunteers are stupid, not because I am one, but because I understand.
The stupid is, the stupid does. What do you understand?
I understand why you get that I'm just going to say the stupid actions of a few that tarnish the reputation of the many. There are very, very, very professional volunteer places all across the state. There are a few wild cards, and the wild cards are what get the attention. On the other hand, I can tell you how difficult it is to go to a guy who's, you know, 35, 40 years old. Because, I mean, in my 10 years, we get probably half of the firefighters are those young single guys who want to do something exciting, and half of our volunteers are the guys that have settled down. They've got some kids, maybe their kids are getting on up into high school or something. They're looking for something to do. So we've got a good bit of the 35, 45-year-old guys.
Okay.
If I go to this guy who's got a wife, kids, a job, he's got hobbies, if I go to him and go, hey, you're going to have to sacrifice 3 nights a week, 4 hours a night for the next 6 months just before you can even come to a meeting, he's going to be like, go pound sand.
Right. No, there's definitely meaning people. When you say I can see both sides, I'm like, nah, people need to stop seeing both sides, to be real with some of this stuff. Standards are standards. Now, you want to come volunteer. Okay, here's the standards. You can volunteer this much for this amount of time before you get your education, because we want you to get connected. And that's marketing, man. That's the first hit of the drug is free. That, we want you to get involved and tied in and feel like you matter. Absolutely. Come on, be a part of that. Here's our meetings. You're going to have to meet at least, if you have 2 meetings a month, you're going to have to at least make one of those each month. Right. But at a certain point, you will have to, if you really want to keep volunteering, you're going to have to commit. If you want to go up to higher levels, whatever, somehow I'm not in it. I don't have time to come up with a great scenario, but basically it's like, you have to get this training at this point. Otherwise, pound sand, because we don't need you.
I get that. That's how I would proceed if I was left to my own devices, but I'm not. I'm forced to follow what the state council says, and the state council says Metro Atlanta has the exact same standards as Podunk Oglethorpe. Our lawyer said so, therefore you guys have to have the same standard.
And that's out of your hands.
Problem with the standards for fire,
and that's where we need
they're unachievable.
Yeah, that's where we definitely need to get more involved in our related groups, like the EMS Alliance, not the EMS Alliance.
There's the Georgia Firefighters Association, the Georgia
Association, EMT Association of Georgia, those kind of things. Yeah, we need to see. We can call our representatives. I mean, you and I, we didn't even call them. We just started talking trash about the representative who funded or who proposed the bill about the cancer bill for firefighting, right? And we was like, no, this is not good. And it got word back to me. He called in on the show. He's like, hey, well, let me set some things straight real quick. And we didn't back off. But yeah, you can get involved with the people, and that's hard. That is hard to do. But and that's why you're super chief. That's the level you play as. You need to get these things changed so that Atlanta and Oglethorpe are not run at the same level, because they're not the same thing.
Yeah, we need to do another one of our fire shows.
Okay. Next week?
Sure.
All right. And we can broadcast to the fire channel at the same time. Yeah. Bring the heat. We'll do that. But for now, this is going to be the end of the podcast. And just for those who are listening, if you're still listening on the podcast, Ronnie is actually doing better. They're looking at possibly taking him off the vent pretty soon. So that's all good news. If you know Ronnie Franklin, or if you have anybody in EMS that's the thing. He was a paramedic, or he is a paramedic rather, got exposed to COVID. It hit him hard. But Ronnie hits back. I learned that the hard way. So it's good that he is coming, showing signs of improvement. If you'd like to submit your topics and questions to us, Charles at GAIEMS.com. That's G as in go, A as in I as in if, E is E is in Edward, M is in maybe, S is in shh.com. I just do it. I just go all over the place just to see your face and have you. So you're turning red. You're like, that's not right. That's not right. So yeah, hit me up with my email. And we'd like that. Oh, I'll talk about anything. We'll talk about everything. So maybe next week we're going to talk about how we change some standards and how some standards are BS. And I mean, even Roy had mentioned for the betterment of fire service, that's BS. Yeah. So we'll get back to it. Yeah, do this on Wednesdays. Right now we're shooting at 4:00 Wednesday afternoons on Facebook.com/Georgia Institute of EMS, where you can watch the live show. YouTube is youtube.com/Georgia Institute of EMS. And of course, the podcast can be found on anchor.fm/EMS Underground. Douglas, thanks for being in. Nicole, thanks for sharing him as you stalking from behind. That's hilarious. And yeah, we'll try this again next week.